Imagine this for a moment. You're a construction worker in Ohio or a nurse in Florida. You hurt your back at work. The pain is unbearable. You go to see your doctor, someone you trust implicitly. They tell you about a miracle drug. It's called OxyContin. They look you in the eye and assure you that it's not addictive because it has a special time-release coating. You trust them. You take the pill. For the first time in weeks, the pain stops. You feel great. 6 months later, you have lost your job. You have drained your savings account. You are lying to your family. You are in a car park, buying heroin from a stranger just to stop the withdrawal symptoms. You didn't choose this life. It was chosen for you in a boardroom thousands of miles away. This isn't a story about illegal drug cartels in faraway countries. It's the story of the most successful drug pushers in history. The people who wore expensive suits and worked out of Stamford, Connecticut. It's the story of Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, who became multi-billionaires by executing a calculated business plan. They turned patients into addicts and pain into profit. To understand this story, we must consider the scale of the devastation caused. The opioid crisis in America has killed more than 500,000 people since 1999. This is more than died in the Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan wars combined. Towns in Appalachia and the Rust Belt have been decimated. At the center of this storm was one company, Purdue Pharma. The company was owned by one family, the Sacklers. For decades, the name Sackler was synonymous with high society and philanthropy. Their name was carved into marble at prestigious institutions such as the Louvre in Paris, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and universities like Harvard and Oxford. They were patrons of the arts and untouchable billionaires, but their vast fortune wasn't built on oil or technology. It was built almost entirely on one tiny pill launched in 1996, OxyContin. They didn't just invent a painkiller. They created a new model for selling drugs that changed modern medicine forever, with catastrophic results. Before OxyContin, strong opioids such as morphine were only used to treat patients who were dying, mostly terminal cancer patients in hospitals. Doctors were reluctant to prescribe them for everyday ailments such as back pain or arthritis because they were aware of their addictive properties. Purdue Pharma's brilliant and deadly insight was to break down that barrier. They had to convince the medical world that opioids were safe for everyone. In 1995, they got their golden ticket, FDA approval for OxyContin. Its active ingredient is oxycodone, a chemical cousin of heroin that is twice as powerful as morphine. So how did they claim it was safe? The contingent system. They claimed that the patented time-release coating meant that the drug would dissolve slowly over 12 hours, resulting in no rush, and therefore no risk of addiction. The FDA permitted them to include a statement on the label that would become the cornerstone of the crisis. Delayed absorption, as provided by OxyContin tablets, is believed to reduce the potential for drug abuse. But notice the words, is believed to. It wasn't proven. It was just a theory. However, Purdue's marketing department took this statement and ran with it as if it were the gospel truth. They knew from the outset that crushing the pill would break the time-release mechanism, providing the full 12-hour dose instantly and resulting in a massive euphoric high. They knew it could be abused, but they kept selling the lie. Purdue didn't just launch a drug. They launched a military-style propaganda campaign. They hired hundreds of sales representatives, often young, attractive, and charismatic, and sent them to target general practitioners in small towns. The incentives were insane. Sales reps could earn hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonuses if they convinced doctors to prescribe the highest doses of OxyContin. They legally bribed doctors. They flew thousands of doctors to all expenses paid pain conferences at luxury resorts in Florida and Arizona. They wined and dined them and paid them speaking fees to tell other doctors how wonderful OxyContin was. Purdue fundamentally changed how doctors thought about pain. They funded organizations that promoted the idea of pain as the fifth vital sign, alongside heart rate and blood pressure. The message was, if a patient is in pain, it is unethical not to treat it with the strongest available methods. They created database maps to identify the doctors who prescribed the most painkillers. They dubbed these doctors whales and bombarded them with sales calls. Some doctors in small towns were prescribing millions of pills a year. Purdue knew that this level of prescription could not be justified by legitimate medical need, yet they did not call the DEA. Instead, they sent more sales reps to reward those doctors. By the early 2000s, the cracks were beginning to show. News reports emerged from states such as Maine and West Virginia about overdoses, pharmacies being robbed, and high school football stars becoming addicted after sports injuries. Purdue Pharma had a choice. They could recall the drug, admit the risk, and save lives, or protect the profit. Under the leadership of Richard Sackler, the family scion who had promoted OxyContin the most, they chose the latter. Their strategy was simple: blame the victim. Confronted with evidence of addiction, Purdue executives argued that the drug was harmless and that the problem lay with the criminal addicts who were abusing it. In a confidential email in 2001, Richard Sackler wrote that they needed to hammer the abusers in every way possible. They are the culprits in the problem. They are reckless criminals. It was a brilliant deflection. They shifted the blame from the supplier to the consumer. They claimed that if you became addicted, it was your moral failing, not an inevitable consequence of their product. Based on their own internal data, they knew that legitimate patients were becoming addicted even when taking the drug exactly as prescribed. However, admitting this would ruin the non-addictive marketing strategy. While communities across America were being devastated by the opioid crisis, with ambulances running out of Narcan and morgues filling up, the Sackler family was accumulating unimaginable wealth. By 2015, they were worth an estimated $13 billion. They lived in a different reality. They used their ill-gotten gains to buy social prestige. Each time someone visited the Sackler wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York to view ancient Egyptian artifacts, the cost of their ticket was effectively funded by the suffering of opioid addicts in the Rust Belt. The facade finally cracked thanks to the relentless efforts of journalists and state attorneys general, who began to sue the company. They gained access to internal documents. They found emails from Richard Sackler pushing for higher sales quotas, even as the death toll mounted. They also found charts showing that Purdue had tracked doctors suspected of running pill mills, but had done nothing to stop them because they were too profitable. The evidence was overwhelming. This wasn't accidental. It was a conspiracy of greed. Faced with thousands of lawsuits that would inevitably bankrupt the company, the Sackler family made one final brilliant financial maneuver. Before the ship sank, they looted it. In the decade leading up to Purdue Pharma filing for bankruptcy in 2019, the Sackler family withdrew more than $10 billion from the company and transferred it to offshore accounts and private trusts that were extremely difficult for U.S. courts to access. When Purdue finally filed for bankruptcy, the family argued that they themselves were not bankrupt. They proposed a settlement. They would relinquish ownership of Purdue and pay several $1 billion over a number of years. However, in exchange, they demanded civil immunity. They wanted a legal guarantee that they could never be sued individually for their role in the opioid crisis. They wanted to buy their freedom with a fraction of the money they had made by causing the problem. Today, the name Sackler is toxic. Museums around the world have removed their name from their walls. The bankruptcy settlement is still tied up in the courts, with victims' families desperately fighting to ensure that the family faces real consequences. Purdue Pharma has been dissolved in disgrace, but the legacy remains. Millions are still struggling with addiction. Hundreds of thousands have died. The story of Purdue Pharma is the ultimate reminder that when we allow medicine to become purely a business, focused solely on maximizing shareholder value, the cost is measured in human lives, not dollars lost on the stock market. It's measured in human lives.